YouTube or Upside DIY. So here's kind of a gardening. Doing a little. These are pretty much house plants. There's another one kind of growing in this bucket. So I got a few buckets. I used to have onions growing in them and stuff, so I don't see them anymore. Used to have like a mistletoe and the house plants in pretty much a kiddie pool situation. They're in the shade all year round, so eventually I'm gonna put them kind of in the sun over here, things like that. And I cleared out that barrel of wastewater and stuff. Find other things. I used to also have onions, and this used to be a planter, but another tree got to it. I've also got a few like pine trees coming in. Here's some more onions. The only problem is I've got to transplant practically everything, and even find a good place to put them and stuff. There's also, stuff like that. You can turn a lot of this into plant food. So I'm just kind of inspecting a few things. I'm not going to do too much work, except so for now I've got to basically have just putting them in water and just letting them grow to see if it works or not. And then foraging. I've even got this water cooler right here. I could just dump just floatable plants if I have floatable plants. So this is what I've got to replant for now. I've got a few more onions. I got orange seeds and lemon seeds. But these pine needles are pretty. They were cuttings and things. They're kind of interesting just because they haven't dropped any needles and things. And just from the original cuttings and stuff, I could kind of just put them in just just looking at the roots, basically, if they started rooting and things, which they didn't. So they're just going to need a little bit more. They might not even grow or anything. Just anything that I mean, I set everything up already. I mean, some of it might be useful, but hopefully, everything's already set up, so I could just. So I've been throwing in just random stuff. Welcome back. So just show you guys, I got pretty much the distance where the shelf could be. Pretty much from like this spot, because there's a little downslope, and it's probably going to be roughly, it's not going to be too wide. It could be 4 feet wide, but I got to clear out. So all this stuff grew over the pretty much 6 months, 6 to 8 months. This and that over the early spring. Cut a few vines that were growing on other trees. These vines kind of get everywhere. Just got to get to where they're growing from, like where the vine is, and try to cut the vine up. But just trying to clear a path to the shed, hopefully. And like in January, they hibernate and stuff, so a lot of the stuff does get cleared up, but just enough for me. This was kind of like blocked a little bit with just some branches and vines, so I got kind of halfway there. It's a bit, if I can. So I guess this is just and I cleaned it off. Was a good thing. Before painting, I used like a broom. So I was kind of painting this on this side, and I had painted in two areas, and then I would just tip those things over and move them and flip them to this other side. So both, as I painted as much as I could on this side, and then I think I'm going to have to turn it the other way, basically, and then just touch up any spots. So I missed a few spots here and there. Stuff like that is pretty annoying. But I think I have 3 cans of this, so I use 1 whole can. What I could try to do is kind of like smear some with my finger while I'm here. Just missed a big spot. If I can find any more puddles, sorting through a few things. I gotta reach in there. There are a few spots. Reach real in there, and I could really, pretty much have a really good painted palette. I will say some of this, I just basically like rushed some parts on this. Just really, just a few puddles. I wish I could find like a brush or a stick I could actually, work on whatever I can. So I'm going to use this and smear any of the extra paint. So that was pretty useful. I was able to kind of reach in to these long, far away little spots, smoothing those few things out, checking the bottom. So, just whatever works good. It kind of gets me a little bit happy for the next doing other things. And I also have other better sticks. That one was pretty good. So I'm just out here for now. I could bring and show you guys the other part, the 2x4s. I only have 4. I originally had 6 or 7 of them, but then I used them for the wood. It wasn't painted, but basically did a good job on this. So I will paint some of this, go and paint the pallets, and then I'll come back and paint some of this. I'm probably going to bring it in using both hands on each. I don't want to scratch this stuff up, but I got most of the spots on all the sides and the edges. Pieces back in. I'm going to try to sort these, so they don't get too scuffed up or separated enough. It's really no big deal. I could also, when I get another can. So I got 2 different wood builds. Kind of have a design right here. And there's other, situations where I need like but I'm trying to build something. And I also thought of other things. These pieces would have to be like 51 inches going across where the forklift would stick the 2 forks in. And then I added X for the height. And these are perfect 48 inches. There's basically half of a 2x4 nowadays. And they basically, it's roughly 4 feet. So it's actually as tall as, the height wise. For the height of a bicycle, the length of a bicycle is roughly around 6 feet. So, and then most of the pieces of wood, that handlebar to the handlebar, that's 2.5 feet. So let's just say 3 feet by 4 feet by 6 feet is the typical dimensions of a bike. And I'll have to have all types of pieces of wood to build like a shelter or even a workbench. But putting those pieces together, I still have pretty much half of, probably have at least 4 pieces, maybe 4 to 8 pieces of 2x4s. So, and this wood, so back on this pallet piece, yeah, and plus I was planning, first I just wanted the pallets looking good, and then I started thinking maybe I could make a workbench out there and stuff. But the workbench is going to not be on a pallet, so that could be a little bit of debris wise, stuff like that. But if I could pretty much have a bunch of wood and this and that pieces over there, I might try to build something indoor for just storing a few bicycles while I can, and then having pretty much a shelf system so that I could put whatever I can into sorting out all this stuff. That's pallet. It, I could still use the instead of using roughly, so I'll need four 51-inch pieces and then four 48 inches for one pallet. So that's technically a lot of wood just to support it at the bottom and also at the top. And then I've got to have two, at least, supports that go in the middle and things like that. It's kind of like these types of supports. So that's, a couple more pieces. So it takes roughly around, and plus the 51 inches is going to, take off the, it's not going to be evening out the whole piece. Yeah, well, no, 45 inches pieces of wood that, might not go with anything else. Stuff like that, to consider. A little bit off, but put that back in, or screwed that back on. So this side is the screws are gonna only be on one side. So I'm gonna try to rotate it to here and then try to put the top piece on. Alright, so this is the top piece. Yeah, just basically sort out and clean up a few things. I'm gonna actually dust off this towel if I could. And for the fence pieces, I have a few 1.5-inch zinc type of screws or whatnot. So I've got separate size screws. So those are going to be pretty much a lot more sturdier than nails and so on. But this is pretty firm. It's pretty solid and firm and things. And I'm also going to add some kind of angle corners. But yeah, just kind of working where I can, especially when, there's not too many gaps, whenever, kind of keeping that in mind. But yeah, I'm going to try to use this drill, and then add some pilot, and then add one screw and pivot. Alright, I didn't even repilot. Things started looking straight to me, but I split, the wood is quite old, but it kind of split it, so I got some wood glue right here. I'm going to back out or try to go in a little bit to spread it, or maybe just keep it as is. But I'm trying to squeeze a little bit of wood glue in there. So I kind of opened up the gap a little bit more. I'm going to use a small piece of plastic that I found or saw in my supplies. Basically have like a small strip of plastic like this, and I'm going to use it to push this wood glue in there, and I'll see you right back. Alright, so this is kind of the wood glue spread it on. So I could add a little bit more, but it's going to try to give it a little bit of a bond. But a lot of the glue did squeeze out as expected. And I'm going to let that dry overnight. So fastened down. I didn't even repilot it. It just glued these gray pieces on these clamps. I got a 3 and or actually a 6 and a 12-inch, $3 a piece. So I just want to show that off a little bit. I'm going to use one of these. So that might be on a little too tight, and even the screws on there, but